Hey guys, welcome to Unintimidated, the Tim Ellis Show. I am Tim Ellis, your host, and I am back. I had break from college, and during that break, I worked. Didn't have a whole lot of time to really produce anything for you guys, but now I'm back at college, which is weird because I feel like you should have more time on your breaks than you do when you're actually doing school. But thus is life, apparently. So yeah, I came back to a great situation with Louder with Crowder and Daily Wire, which I figured I would kind of address in my comeback video because it was very interesting to me, and I think it raises a lot of concerns and thoughts with the conservative movement that I've had and I've really been dealing with for a while now, really. So yeah, so what happened is Steven Crowder, the host and owner of Louder with Crowder, uh, went on break at the end of 2022 after having recently declared his company independent of Blaze. So Blaze was the network they'd previously been with, and then they ended up leaving them because their contract ended and they didn't want to continue that relationship any farther. And so he was independent, ready to partner up with somebody else. And Daily Wire made him an offer, which is like super awesome, super exciting. Except it's not, apparently. So Crowder released a video titled, I believe it was I didn't want to have to do this, or something along those lines. You can find it pretty easily. It's his latest video. And his latest video as of January 20th. And in this video, he showed the contract that he'd been given. He gave the numbers. He said, I was offered 50 million, and which is great. That's a great amount for him. And it was him. And I believe the rest of he's got like 25 employees somewhere in there. So him and the rest of his employees, which was really awesome. I was really happy for that. But the problem is that they gave him a contract that was very restrictive and it penalized him for some strange things, which I'm going to get into. So, first of all, he had to be constantly producing content, which I do understand. You couldn't work for an organization and then decide, oh, well, now I've got my paycheck. I'm just going to take a month-long break and I'll not be back for a little bit. So, it penalized you for not meeting quarterly, I believe monthly, quarterly, and yearly quotas of content, of daily content, which is something that Crowder disagreed with. He said that the way it was is pretty much as that he couldn't take even vacations because he had to keep producing videos. So have you guys ever wondered why Michael Knowles, when he goes on vacation, has 7 recorded videos? That's what it is, I assume. So the contract that he was given, he said, was presented to him as being given to everyone in the Daily Wire as just a standard contract. So he gave some of the details of that, and I'll read out the most concerning section that he put up a screenshot of. So that's where I got this screen snip from, and I'll be putting it up here. So he says there were three stipulations, section A, B, and C, and I'll start with A, with ad drops. So if Crowder has boycotted or dropped more than 50% of his then extant advertising partners, so that's 50% of the revenue, not 50% of the number, and the company is not able to replace them within 90 days, then the fee will be reduced by 25% until such time as that ad revenue has been restored for a period of 90 days. B, content strike. If any of the major platforms, that is YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, I don't have an Apple, so I don't yeah, issues a content strike, with the exception of a company-wide one, which would be the entirety of the Daily Wire and its affiliates being stricken off the network, such as that Crowder content cannot be monetized on such a platform, and the company is not able to resolve the issue within 90 days, then the fee will be reduced by 25% from that point forward. So, as some of you may know, Crowder isn't currently monetized on YouTube. He gets not a penny from YouTube. It's all from Mug Club. It's all from the one ad slot that he runs per show, which I very much appreciate. I can't stress how much it gets a little annoying to hear essentially the same ad just segued into differently every time you watch a Daily Wire show. And I understand that they need to have a living, but I would have a little more respect for them, considering that they are monetized on YouTube and they do have a subscription service and they are growing at a very good rate, probably because of all of this amount of ad revenue, which Crowder isn't relying on. He has one ad per slot, and then occasionally he like cheats in an ad with him. At the end he's like, by the way, they didn't pay for an ad, but here's Walther Arms, etc. So stuff like that. If he gets any of those content strikes, reduced by 25%, just heading forward. So he loses both YouTube revenue and Daily Wire revenue, which is ridiculous. And then if he's banned, if his content cannot be released on any of the platforms because of Crowder or his content being banned, and his fee is reduced by 20% if it's Apple Podcasts or YouTube, and then 10% if it's Spotify or Facebook, which is kind of ridiculous because it makes the left boycotting him that much more effective. Were Crowder to get banned on YouTube, he also takes it in the backside from Daily Wire. So it's punishing. It's also an undue amount of stress because every time they produce something, then they have to be concerned that like, oh, this might not make it. Like if I say this, then I'm gonna get banned. I'm gonna get stricken. I'm gonna have to get on my knees to YouTube to try and get my stuff back within 90 days, or else I'm in very big trouble, right? Which is a really frustrating thing because it's essentially going to cause your host to eventually become safer and safer, trying to avoid the stricter and stricter like boundaries that PC political correctness is confining you to, right? So while initially you may have been able to say the word, I don't know, homosexual, eventually it's going to get to the point where you're not allowed to do that. Or if you accidentally misgender someone, you could get banned from a platform like gone. And so you have to be very careful with what you say or else you lose monetization. It's the way it is. And so it's very frustrating to see that they were going to stick that on Crowder, who has no such, he doesn't work like that. That's not how Crowder talks, which is something I appreciate. I appreciate that he has this passion for this industry that shows itself in the way that he talks, the way that he expresses himself, and the way that he views these topics, because it tells me that it's not this almost like if you compare it to something like from the Shapiro Show or from Matt Walsh, from Knowles, from Klavan, theirs is very smooth delivery. It's very polished. It's very exact. And Crowder, although exact, is much more blunt. You can tell that he didn't edit it. He isn't worried about what people are going to particularly think about him, except for the fact that sometimes if he's been banned for something, he will dodge around the topic to try and keep himself on the platform, which is only natural. He's trying to reach all of these viewers, and it's getting very difficult for him. So it is what it is. I wish it weren't so, but it is. So, but this contract would have been very seriously binding of his ability to do even that, because he's frequently having to take breaks from YouTube and publish only on Rumble because he's just simply not allowed on YouTube for fear of like, if I get another strike, my entire channel's gone. That's what happened over the elections. And for the Daily Wire to really expect him to conform to that isn't really allowing him to be Crowder. So I understand why he rejected the deal. I also understand why he's a little bit concerned if this deal is something that is overarching for all of Daily Wire, because that means that Shapiro, Knowles, Klavan, Walsh, Cooper, Crane & Co., everyone at the Daily Wire is under that same stipulation and is going to be muting themselves and just gagging themselves so that they aren't going to run afoul of that. Oh, and Candace, how could I forget Candace? But so all of the different producers at the Daily Wire run into those problems. If this if this really is true, and I kind of see it as black and white from there. If all of them have this contract, Daily Wire needs to drastically change their approach and remove the stipulations in that contract that are forcing people to silence themselves or else get punished from both YouTube or whatever they're being hosted on and Daily Wire. Because it's ridiculous that there would be the thought of like we're trying to be a conservative movement, but at the same time we're trying to appease big tech. It just doesn't seem right to me. It really doesn't, because I don't see how a company really is able to honestly grow if they're not being genuine with their beliefs. And so that's my problem with it. I think Crowder may have come out too early with this. I know it as it's come out, it seems like he's been sitting on this for a while. Especially with he'd had the website up for a while now. He had a recorded call that he played with Jeremy Boring. That's been a while, and it seems he's thought about it. It does, but I haven't really heard Daily Wire side of it because they've mostly just indulged in shooting back. And I would like to see like an actual discussion. And perhaps Crowder needs to rectify or restate whatever he has to say about it, because maybe he should have counteroffered to Daily Wire and been like, "Hey, here's what I've got, here's what I think," and then shown us what Daily Wire had to say back. Because in watching Crowder's video, a lot of times you have his statement like, "Hey, you need to change this," and then Daily Wire being like, "No, we're not doing that," and that's kind of the end of the discussion. But I would like to hear a little bit more from both sides, really. So we had Candace on Tim Pool today. I just saw a few clips from that. I haven't seen the entirety of the show, which I may have to go back and do. And then Crowder will be on Tim Pool on Monday. So we'll get to see both sides and see where this goes, because it seems like either Daily Wire is dramatically in the wrong or Crowder is just crazy, or both. I genuinely don't know, but I would hate for Crowder to be that dramatically mistaken, because a bit of me wants to believe that he's right, because he's standing up for smaller people. He's saying that, he had the opportunity and the luxury of walking away from that contract because he's fine. He's doing all right on his own. Whereas someone like Brett Cooper, who's trying to build a platform but doesn't really have anything, she needed the Daily Wire to get her million, which I don't remember her exact numbers. She's a little above 1 million on Instagram and maybe 1.5 million or something on YouTube. The two that I have really access to. But so she's doing quite well now, but previously she only had a few thousand subscribers before she hit Daily Wire, and she would have been forced to sign that contract. There would have been no way for her to get around it, merely because what is she going to do? She's a little nobody that next to no one knows, just trying to get her voice out there. And so she has to sign that contract. She has to abide by those rules because she can't do anything else. So, yeah, I very much hope that the whole situation rectifies itself. I hope that if Daily Wire is actually indulging in this and that's the contract that they're giving to everyone, I very much hope that they rescind it and reissue fairer contracts that allow for more freedom of speech. I do understand the side of like, you can't have your employees just saying whatever, but it seems like it's punishing them for the wrong things. It's punishing them for very basic, like losing your funding on YouTube. I don't think is that difficult. I don't know. I'm not funded on YouTube, so I couldn't tell you. But it does seem like it is a relatively possible and plausible thing that if I ever do get funded, I'm going to lose it instantaneously. I hope. I'd wear it as a badge of honor. Um, so yeah, that's my thoughts on it. We need more information, but as of now, I'm gonna continue listening to who I listen to and reading what I read. I listen to Crowder. I listen to the Daily Wire. I do like Crowder a little bit more for listening to, merely because he has multiple people on the show, so you essentially get 3 or 4 different shows all crammed into one, which is just more information faster. They also have a history of being a little more right than other platforms. There have been times that they've examined documents and they've been like, no, this is actually the way it is, and then other platforms haven't quite been correct on that. So I think Crowder has a bigger history of being correct. So that's why I will continue to watch him. I will still watch the Daily Wire shows that I do watch. So I'm not gonna burn either bridge. Not that it is much of one. I just watch. I don't own stakes in any of the companies. Yeah, they're not publicly traded, so 0. But I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes. I would hate to think that this is actually true. That the Daily Wire is making it so restrictive on their employees. Because I do understand that there needs to be some accountability, but this isn't accountability. This is merely getting your employees to the point where they'll be afraid to touch controversial issues, which is what we truly want. At a certain point, it becomes obvious that a thing is wrong and the opposite is also wrong, but we need to find whatever the thing in the middle is that's correct, and a lot of times they dance around that subject. So I would like to see that. And that's really why part of why I built this show. There's a story behind it that I may tell at some point. I don't know. It's not that great of a story, but I just want to see the small issues dealt with, because a lot of times they'll talk about abortion in wide strokes, but there are a lot of very small situations that require very delicate dealings. It's like, and then there's such things as contraceptions and abortifacients. It's like, is that right? Is that wrong? They're wrong. But I haven't seen a whole lot of conservative hosts even deal with that, because that's not something that is of any concern to them, apparently. And I think it's because of this. Because if Matt Walsh comes out and says that contraceptives are wrong in the most explicit of terms, then he may lose ad revenue. And if he loses ad revenue, he's got 90 days to get it back up. And if he doesn't get it back within 90 days, 25% out of his fee. I don't know. I know that they have dealt with it with stuff like contraceptives briefly, but I would appreciate if there are some issues that they hesitate to talk about, even going so far as Shapiro was advocating for the COVID shot for a little while there. It seems like now he's calmed down and he's not as far of a or as strong of a proponent of it. But for a while there, he was. And that was very concerning to me, because I don't care how apparently safe something is. But if you produce it within such a brief period and then start en masse obligating companies and people to get it, on the pure thought of just being annoying to you, I will refuse. Which is, it's partially me. But it also seems weird that something should be so strongly proposed. Granted, nobody at the Daily Wire was obligated to get it, but the fact that Shapiro was in favor of it for a while is very strange because I think that he should have known much better had he done his research. So that's my take. That is my thoughts. I would love to see your comments, so put them down below. Let me know what you guys are thinking. I think it's very middle of the road right now. It could go either way. I think Monday with uh, on Tim Pool, Crowder will be able to open up, give us a little bit more, especially with Tim Pool having spoken with Candace today about that very issue. So we'll get a little bit more about this, which will be interesting because I do think the Daily Wire has done a lot. They've done a lot of good. And I want them to continue that. We have Matt Walsh's documentary. We have Candace's documentary. We have all sorts of great resources thanks to the Daily Wire. But having heard other members of the Daily Wire talk, some of them are not that conservative. I went to a conference for, was it YAF? So YAF, Young Adults for Freedom. It sounds to me like it should be Young Adult Federation, but Young Adults for Freedom. And I went to a conference for them in DC last year. So it had been like late last year, it might have been December, if I remember correctly. And they had a person from the Daily Wire who came there, and all he did was he was talking about abortion and why it was wrong. And all he did was hit the 5 conservative talking points or whatever it is on no abortion, it's not right. And then someone came up and asked him a question. They asked, hey, what about abortion in instances of rape? Let's say you've got a very young girl who was brutally raped by this man. Should she have to carry that baby to term? And why? Because that's a terrible thing. Every time she sees that baby, she's going to have the reminder of her assault at such a tender age. She's going to have to deal with that. And the person speaking, I do not remember his name. I also don't really want to say it, even if I did know it. Because I think that's his fault. He should know better. But yeah, he simply went and he said it is a terrible thing, but I'm still wrestling with that myself, and I'm not really sure, which is not the right answer. It's a blatantly clear answer that abortion is never the answer. Now I feel terrible for the girl that is stuck in that situation. I genuinely do. That is such a bad place to be. But to try and fix one evil by committing another is not how this works. It's not how life should work. We have adoption. It's a very clear thing. And we have pregnancy help centers that can help her every step of the way into motherhood, if that's the route that she chooses, which may or may not be wise. I don't know. I'm using a hypothetical here. I don't know a particular person, right? But it is never right to do a wrong to cover up another wrong because you assume that it's going to take away some of the pain. Because now this girl has not only the brutal instance, but also her own abortion of killing her own child. So it's not an easy answer, but I do wish that more conservatives would talk about it and would be open with what their beliefs are on the smaller things. Because at a certain point, it gets to where it's only the smaller things. Because it's very clear that transgenderism is wrong. You can only talk about that so many times. You can only watch so many TikToks about that. When eventually you need to be genuine and just be like, yes, I acknowledge that is wrong. But what about the smaller things? What about, I don't know. So that's my thought. That's also my little rant that I wasn't exactly intending to be on, but here we are. So yeah, I hope that Crowder and the Daily Wire are able to resolve their issues and to get back to working on the same side. which I believe at the heart, the hosts of Daily Wire do believe in that. I believe that they are fighting the right fight, or what they believe to be the right fight. I think they may just be doing it, or some of them may be doing it in the wrong way. If this contract is real, I it is entirely possible that Crowder made it up. It's possible. It's one of the options. Or he could have been misinformed that it was given to everyone. It could have been merely given to him because he's a little bit of a wild card. He really is. Or it could have been given to everyone on the Daily Wire staff, which is something that we need to possibly consider. That do we want to listen to people who may have this gag in their mouths? I don't know, but it's pretty severe if they do get dropped on next to anything, you know? Even a 10% drop in a salary that's a lot. So, I'm not sure. I I don't know. We'll see. But for now, comment down below what you guys think, and I will hopefully be talking to you a whole lot more as I get more settled in my schedule and able to produce more for you guys. And yeah, so anyhow, God bless. Adios.